What's the worst second-hand embarrassment you've ever experienced? 90% of the things Michael Scott character does in The Office. The dinner party episode. My god, I can barely watch it. I have that half grimace half smile plastered to my dumb face the entire time. Seeing a comedian bomb. Even if I thought the joke was lame and didn't deserve a laugh, it's just awkward for everyone. A few months ago, two of my best friends got married. My roommate was the best man, and during the reception he gave an awesome toast. Not too long, a couple of good jokes, put everyone in a really great mood. Then the maid of honor gets to go. I'd never met her before. She was the bride's longtime best friend. She's a little drunk, but seems pretty together. She takes the mic, starts to do the usual marriage is a blessing kind of stuff. Talks about how lucky the bride is to have met someone who she can spend the rest of her life with. And then she starts to ramble on about how it must be so wonderful to be so lucky, and that's something everyone wants. All the while, she's staring at her boyfriend who is sitting right up front. Several minutes pass, and it becomes clear that she's no longer talking about the newlyweds. She's just trying to guilt her boyfriend into proposing on the spot. He didn't. She sounds like an butthole if she expects him to crash the wedding by proposing to her, and thinks the best way to do this was to give a speech about it in front of everyone. When a kid screamed in the supermarket, "If you don't buy it for me, I will tell granddad I saw you kissing daddy's willy." Holy crap. I made a vow to never hit my kids, but I'd probably murder the little dickhead right there in the aisle, had he been mine. Goddamn. When my sister happily told the family that she was pregnant, after numerous pregnancies ending in miscarriage, we were hugging her and raising a glass to her when my then 4-year-old loudly said, "This one is just going to die too." Sadly, he was right. I was out with a group of friends Saturday night when the Trump rushed off stage story broke. One guy said, "See, I told you he'd get assassinated." Another said, "Not gonna happen. Too much security now. Last time was 1963, JFK. The girl in our group asked you shouldn't joke about things like that. Was it 1963 or not? November 22nd. Oliver Stone even made a film about it. JFK. Aren't you guys ever serious?" Ends up she thought JFK was text speak for just freaking kidding. And that's the day you found out your friend was an idiot. Holy crap. Watching pallbearers lose control of a coffin they were carrying down a steep set of granite church steps after the funeral was over. An ice sleet storm took place during the funeral service, so the steps were slick. Several pallbearers went down as the coffin landed on the granite steps and slid the rest of the way down to the sidewalk below. Fortunately, the lid didn't open, but we all felt badly for them as the look on their faces showed they were mortified. We did group presentations in high school on different issues in the media, racism, sexism, violence, etc. The group that did sexism thought sexism meant examples of people wanting to have sex with each other. So they showed us the scene from Can't Hardly Wait where the two people end up locked in the bathroom and have sex. I'm cringing just writing this. A friend of mine had been trying to hit on a colleague of ours for a few weeks. She clearly enjoyed the attention but wasn't particularly interested, and after a couple of times getting knocked back we started suggesting that he might want to check himself, because it was getting kind of awkward and he was coming on a bit strong. One evening we'd gone out for some drinks and he ended up sitting awkwardly next to her, arms crossed, looking absolutely miserable while she made out with another girl, which would have been awkward enough. But it turned out they'd actually been dating for months at this point and she just didn't bother telling him she had a girlfriend. We even tried to take him away from the situation but he insisted on sitting there the whole time staring at his feet and obviously feeling awful. A while after he resolved to try to be friends with her instead, but it turned out her relationship with that girl was pretty serious. 6 or 7 years later they're married now. So he couldn't even hang out with her without being reminded of how he behaved that first time he met her now wife. So it's still embarrassing. He sat next to her hoping he would get pity attention for looking sad. Frickin' yikes. What a squib. My whole grade was at this farewell party thing and then this one guy went up on stage and asked everyone to come up on stage and dab with him. No one responded so he just dabbed himself and went off. I think a little part of me died right there. At least he committed. Seeing someone be stood up on a date. Oof, It's painful to watch. It's really a seriously crappy thing to do to someone. Whatever your reasoning, if you don't want the date, just cancel it. I took my uncle who was visiting from Bangladesh to Universal Studios. We were in line for The Mummy, and there was this young couple right in front of us in line. Now, people who have never been to South Asian countries might not be aware of this, but personal space as a concept is totally foreign to South Asians. I guess it's a result of living in such crowded cities, but the natural instinct that Americans have of leaving a good 6 inches or more between them and the nearest other person is just not present in South Asian people, especially elderly people. So when my uncle and I get in line, he goes right up behind the couple in front of us. Specifically, the girl in front. Literally there was maybe an inch of space between them. The poor girl could probably feel his breath on her neck. She swivels around and looks visibly startled by how close he is. She leans over and mutters something to her boyfriend, who also looks back, and then puts a possessive arm around the girl while giving my uncle an impressively threatening stinky. I thought that expression needed no translation, but my uncle is blissfully unobservant. He's chattering on in Bengali about his new grandchildren, cheerful in a way only truly oblivious people can be. I, on the other hand, am dying. A small part of me wanted to laugh. The rest of me is terrified that this young healthy looking guy is gonna murder my idiot old uncle for literally breathing on his girl, like some old 50s movie. As the line progresses, I manage to kind of insert myself in front of my uncle and form a human barrier between him and the couple. He doesn't seem to notice what I'm trying to do and just keeps telling me to move up. But then I distracted him into telling me a long story that I did not hear one word of, until the couple was finally safely on the ride and 10 feet away from us. That was easily one of the most stressful 20 minutes of my life. On the plus side, my uncle really liked Universal Studios and he bought me a SpongeBob hat and backpack, so not a totally terrible day. You know when you have to use the bathroom really badly and you get pretty gassy, and that noise it makes inside your gut, like you're farting inside yourself? Well, I was taking an exam in my math class in high school, so the room was quiet, and that happened to this one guy, except it was incredibly loud and lasted, no joke, for like 1 whole minute and everyone was looking around the room at each other laughing, except for him. His head was down and his ears were blood red lol. Poor guy, it was awful. I get that in stressful situations a lot. The worst part is some of the internal farts escape and I'm awkwardly trying to remain calm no matter how obvious it was that it was me. I was in a sports shop with my dad when I was about 8. We were both in there buying inline skates. My dad was testing out some around the store, not realizing only one of the skates had a brake. Put the wrong foot back to brake and very comedically fell back waving his arms. Grabbed a soccer goalpost on his way down and brought the whole goalpost down on top of him. He just lay there with the net covering him. I tried to pretend I didn't know who he was. I was in media class back in high school, so a part of what we had to do was go to local events around town and wanted to get credit and pass the class. One time I was filming an award ceremony with a few of my friends from class when I noticed a young girl in a wheelchair and I saw that her parents and a few of the staff members of the venue were trying to get her down a set of stairs while she was in a wheelchair. Little did they know that if they just went around where I was there was a ramp that would down to the lower level. But while they were trying to get her down the stairs she happened to fall out of her chair. They had to call an ambulance to take her away and none of us knew what ended up happening with her, but everybody in the theater got really quiet and it was insanely awkward. Every single Valentine's Day or promposal during high school, seeing my classmates pull big stunts to express their feelings almost always fell flat. It was all around awkward, especially if you were a spectator of the whole thing. I realized in high school that, if you want to get a true answer, you need to be genuine and talk in private. Putting someone under the spotlight is a lot of pressure. Someone broke up with the guy who was sitting next to me in the subway. He started sobbing and begging him not to do it. You could tell that he was embarrassed that this was happening to him in public, but his emotions took over. That is brutal, comma. I went to Orlando with my parents, grandparents, and 2 aunts. We were in a restaurant that I don't remember the name of, but it was the one where Disney characters come to the table. My grandpa ordered the shrimp. 20 minutes later, he gets a look on his face and he says in his thick Russian accent to Donald Duck, I have to go to bathroom. Can thou direct me to bathroom? Donald points to it and Grandpa gets up and walks across to where it was. He pursues and crouched down before getting there. A brown stain appeared on his cream pants. He had eaten some bad shrimp. The diarrhea was awful and we had to leave that day and ride in the car with him all soiled. He was so embarrassed. There is something so much worse when old people are the victim of such unfortunate events. Was bowling with some mates and there was a female group on a nearby lane. Some of them were pretty cute. One of my mates, whilst being a great guy, just has to show off whenever there's women involved, so he would throw the ball far harder than necessary whenever he took his turn. He goes up to take a shot and I point out that the time is up on the lane is up and it's not going to count. He starts his swing, then stops, keeping hold of the ball and just kind of nonchalantly swinging it round in an arc. The ball flies out his hand, goes really high into the air and comes down with a huge crash into the lane to our left, causing the entire bowling alley to turn round and stare at him. I still cringe thinking about it today. The thing is, that was the only time the women on that other lane paid any attention to our group. They were just enjoying their bowling and couldn't give a toss about us. A friend of mine got rejected after proposing to her longtime boyfriend a week ago. I mean, despite the humiliation, I was still impressed, because I bet it took a lot of balls courage to propose marriage to your so without discussing it with them first. Does watching The In-Betweeners count? Feisty one you are. Ashley Simpson's lip sync fail on Saturday Night Live. Haha, and that hoedown dance she does to try and save it. When my newborn son let out a big fart in the grocery store and someone thought it was me. Sure. When some random man was yelling at an amusement park attendant that they are all racist for charging him $1 instead of 99 cents for a drink. Plot twist. It was in Canada, where everything is rounded to the next nickel if you're paying cash. Being in class with that guy who opened his laptop and had pee playing. Ouch. And that's why you always check your laptop 2 more times before class. When Kevin spilled his chili. He worked so freaking hard on that goddamn chili. Last year when I was in grade 12, we had a guest motivational speaker come in to talk to our small school, about 250 students. He used to only do private sessions, but this was his first public session in front of a large crowd. He completely bombed. He choked. He spent 30 minutes in front of the whole school trying to do his presentation. It was bad. I was in the queue at a coffee shop and there was an impatient businessman in front of me. He'd snapped at the barista a bit and we were just standing in silence. Suddenly this happy guy comes in and does a joke tap on one shoulder and duck to the other side, so the businessman looked right, then left to see this happy chap grinning at him. Then poor happy man realized this wasn't his pal and quickly mumbled an apology and shuffled behind me to wait for his friend to actually arrive. Unbelievably awkward silence. Businessman. I freaking hate Mondays. Male strip show. It was not sexy and I just felt incredibly embarrassed for them. Was at my neighbor's birthday party years ago and her parents hired a male stripper. It was her 15th birthday. She sat on a chair in the middle of the dance floor, while this slightly chubby guy wearing only a pair of Speedos just kind of wiggled awkwardly in front of her. Even at 14, I know that was going to be about the most fricked up thing I was going to see. Like this video and this good bee will play you a nice song. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.